Hey everybody, how you doing? Well, that's good. Welcome to PHLY Flyers, presented by Mortgage CS. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to start your home buying process today. Company NMLSID, number 1464766. My name is Bill Matz. I'm your director of fun and games for the evening. Joining me today in studio, he's here, folks. He won't just drop in the middle, leaving all sorts of unknown about the final star of the game.
I hope that eventually got communicated.
We did. You did. We wanted to know if you were going to give it to the goalposts or Morgan Frost, but you went with the traditional Morgan Frost, indeed, which was definitely warranted. This is Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat reporter, Charlie O'Connor. Charlie, just another normal-ass week in the life of a beat reporter in Philadelphia covering this hockey team, huh?
As I said on Twitter yesterday, good. I think, it's all actually my fault because I dared to think to myself, oh, the trade deadline is finally passed. Now I'll be able to focus on the hockey games, not all this other off-ice rumors and speculation and drama. It'll be all about the hockey. The Flyers are making a playoff push. Every game matters. I'll just be able to analyze the games. What happens? Later that night, John Tortorella gets thrown out of a game, then gets suspended, and then pretty much immediately upon returning, decides he's going to scratch the captain.
It's awesome. We are never going to be out of work, Charlie.
Yeah.
Like this team, they could win no games and they would somehow find a way to be utterly ridiculous.
Yep.
They have been, who they are. Like whether it's the dumbest stuff they're doing or something that's just interesting, no matter what, they are somewhere on the, they're worth talking about scale, which really, it's great job security covering this team, indeed, quite honestly. But we made the people wait last night. We wanted to tease Couturier and then talk about the game and then get into all the Coots stuff.
The game was important. It was a big game.
It was a very
important game that they had to win, especially given the fact that this gauntlet just keeps going for another week. Yeah. Carolina's won 7 of 8. They got Jake Gensel. They're rolling right now. They're going to play them on the road. I don't expect them to win that game, regardless of who is in the lineup and who is not. Then they play Boston again. Now, they almost beat them, I guess, on Saturday, but they never beat Boston.
No.
Then they get Florida, who, yes, I know they've beaten Florida twice over the last 2 months, but they're friggin' Florida. They're real good. And then they get the Rangers, a team who they also have struggled against this season. So this was, you could make a case that this Toronto game was the easiest game left of the gauntlet. You really could make a case of that. And they went out and they got the win.
Now, you can make that case, and it's most likely true. I will say, you know how they never beat Boston? They never beat the Leafs either.
Yeah, true.
I looked this up last night. So the last time before last night they beat the Leafs, November 9th, 2019.
It's wild.
The before times, 3-2 in a shootout.
Times.
The last time they beat the Leafs in Philly was the previous season, March 27th, 2019, also in a shootout. The last time they beat them in regulation, December 12th, 2017.
Wow.
It was 2 days after Carson Wentz tore his ACL, gave way to Nick Foles.
Wow.
And it was Matthews' sophomore season, so it's the second year they had the big three.
Okay.
And I say it's the big three because John Tavares was in the middle of his final year as an Islander.
Right.
That's how long ago it was. They last beat them in regulation.
That would have been the first year Toronto was good, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time for that as well. So maybe a harbinger. Maybe they beat Boston finally.
You never know.
But let's get to the Couturier stuff because it's too good not to talk. My God, this team. So Sean Couturier, we all know his struggles basically through the second half of the season.
The struggles are real.
Yeah. He has not been good.
Let's get that out of the way now. It's not like this is John Tortorella inventing the struggles of Sean Couturier. You have the numbers right here. First 31 games, 19 goals, 14 assists. I wrote an article at the end of December basically saying he should be being discussed, and I hold to this. At that time, he should have been being discussed not as the Selke favorite. I think Barkov is going to rightfully run away with it, but he should have been
down ballot
down ballot voting. He should have been in the conversation at that point. Really, this struggle really kicked off, I would say, in like mid-January. He missed a couple games with an injury. Since he's been back, he has not been the same. You have the numbers here. Last 33 games, 2 goals, 11 assists.
Should be 12, but the NHL is for some reason acting insane about this Delorier goal. Delorier got an unassisted goal. That's likely.
If you slow it down, we're talking about the goal Delorier scored in Boston. The reason why they snubbed him for the assist, I get it.
I don't at all.
Is that what it looks like happened is Couturier, the puck is actually on Andrew Peake's stick. Couturier hits Andrew Peake's stick, which then pushes the puck to Delorier. So it was basically a forced turnover rather than an assist. However, it's abundantly clear that goal does not happen if Sean Couturier does not force the turnover. I really thought
he got his stick in there, but you definitely slowed it down more than I did. I will just say, I think you should be rewarded in some way for what is possibly going to be the final goal of that dude's career.
It's possible.
There's a real possibility.
Oh boy.
Anyway, regardless, Couturier struggles. Now, there's a lot of people who are like, he earned this scratch. I don't think it's that bad, but
I don't think it's
to
that
your
bad
point, like I still think he's, if not one of the 6, he's one of the 9 best forwards on this team, even while struggling. But he has been nowhere near the level we saw in the first half of the season.
Agreed. I would say that over in the second half of the season, he has played like a decent bottom 6 center, which is not good enough for what the Flyers need him to be, without a doubt. I mean, we saw what the Flyers can be when he's playing like a legitimate top 6 center. They do what they did in the first half of the year when they put themselves in position where now they might be able to hang on to a playoff spot. But part of the reason why the Flyers are below 500 really since the middle of January is because since the middle of January, Sean Couturier has played like a bottom 6 center.
They don't have anything resembling a top center.
Yeah.
Like Morgan Frost has been good.
Thing to have. Yeah, he's the closest thing to have.
What do we all think he is?
Yeah, he's like a number 2, number 3, somewhere in that like middle 6 range, ideally on a good team. So Sean Couturier has certainly dropped off. I do not think you can make a case, a really strong, statistically sound case, that Sean Couturier is not one of the 12 best forwards on the roster right now. I don't think that is possible. And while John Tortorella can say that, you know, I've just put the best lineup on the ice, he can't actually believe that's the case, which tells you that either he is delusional, which I don't think he is. No. I don't think he actually believes that Bobby Brink, who he doesn't seem to think is a clear-cut NHL player, Ole Lycksell, who he wouldn't even play for weeks on end, and Nick Delorier, who he's been regularly scratching since January, are all better hockey players than Sean Couturier. If you hook him up to a lie detector, there is no way that John Tortorella actually believes that. So if we will acknowledge that that is at least a white lie told to the media to spin this in the way he wants to, the reason for scratching Sean Couturier goes beyond, I just don't think he's one of our 12 best forwards, which is why we can get into the conversation as to what's really going on.
And that's what's so, like, that's the interesting part here. Like, his struggles, the scratch, where it starts for me is that on Valentine's Day, he was named Sean Couturier, pronouns, pal. He was named the captain. 35 days after that, he is a healthy scratch. Now, there are different processes for naming captains. The teams do it differently.
Generally speaking, it happens at the start of a season, at the end of training camp. John Tortorella obviously does nothing by the book. So. No.
But the simple election, sometimes it's a locker room, it's the boys decide. Sometimes it's a coach call. We know that John Tortorella has taken the C off of a guy before who was a pretty damn great player himself at one point. Whose decision really was it to name a captain?
So everything I have heard and all of the digging and reporting I have done, both on and off the record, tells me that it was all Torts. That because I know there's been some conjecture on social media that actually Tortorella never wanted to name Couturier the captain. Mm-hmm. This is all coming from above.
This is his revenge.
I have heard, everything I've heard tells me this was Torts' idea, because Tortorella was the one who's been running this show from a captaincy standpoint. He's the guy who didn't want a captain last year. He's the guy at the start of this season. This was like the first day of training camp. He basically is like, oh, I'm going to say it right now so you guys don't bother me all year. I'm not naming a captain this year. This was a decision by Torts from everything I've reported, from everything other people have reported. So I don't think this is a case of we're all getting bad information. I think this was Torts' idea, was that I want a captain. Sean Couturier has shown me that he deserves to be the captain. I'm naming Sean Couturier the captain on freaking Valentine's Day. Thanks a lot, John. Really appreciate it. But anyway, he decides he's going to do that. This was a Tortorella decision, which makes it all the weirder that a little over a month later, he's scratching him. If this was entirely Torts' decision, why then a month later do you scratch the guy who you could have easily just not given it to him? Everyone would have been fine with that. You set the expectation there wasn't going to be a captain this year, and then you pull a rabbit out of your hat midway through the year and give the guy the captaincy only for a month later to scratch him. And you noticed yesterday, it seemed like the people who were the most agitated about this were the media in Canada. And part of this is because Canadian media has always, even more so than Flyers fans, who very much put the captain on a pedestal, Canadian hockey fans think the captaincy is this exalted form of hockey deity, where if you're the captain, and that's the most important thing ever. So the Canadian media was losing their goddamn minds yesterday. And in fairness to them, this doesn't happen. The last time a captain has been scratched for reasons that weren't, well, there's 2 games left in the year, we're doing some load management before the playoffs. The last time was a decade ago when Florida did it to Ed Jovanowski, who was really at the end of his career. And that was, if I remember correctly, not a good hockey team. So this is a rarity. And it does open the question of, Tortorella knows all this. He's not an idiot. He knows that captains don't get scratched. He knows that he just gave this guy the captaincy a month ago, which makes this all the weirder.
To me, I have different thoughts about maybe what the coach is thinking, and we'll never know because I don't think he's out of his mind, delusional.
No, I don't think so
But he
either.
is a crazy person.
He is impulsive, to be sure.
Yeah, impulsive.
Impulsive is a good way to put it.
But I do wonder if this entire thing was calculated, because leading up to the decision to name him captain, it was that's when the rumor mill really starts going. It's a little less than a month before the trade deadline. We don't know who's going, but we know someone is on the way out. They're going to trade
it seemed
at least one defenseman. Scott Lawton's name's going to be out there. Who knows what else is going to be coming? We might need something, just formalize the leadership group here, turn the locker room over to the boys. Putting the captaincy on him puts that spotlight on Sean Couturier. Yes. You knew things were also going to go downhill at some point. This stretch of games, they were never going to come out of this unscathed. They were never going 6-1 in this stretch.
Especially after you trade Sean Walker.
Yeah, especially after the Sean Walker trade and then all the defensive injuries that happened. There was going to be some sort of adversity.
Absolutely. This,
at least for a game, seems to have, and I fucking hate using this word, galvanized the crew. They came out. This wasn't the Florida game, but this was as close to a good, the most complete game they have played in a long time outside of that Florida game.
In a few weeks, to be sure.
I don't want to give Torts this much credit, but I feel like this may have been maybe not the exact components of what he ended up doing, scratching him, but you could see him starting to lower Coots' ice time. You could just see this kind of building towards this circumstance. I wonder if this was all a way to pull that, the Dallas Green, it's going to be 25 guys against me. They're going to have that because they've had the us against the world thing all year, and now that's kind of wearing thin because they're just, they got no defensemen left.
Yeah.
TK's coming back from injury. All these things, they're down to their third string goalie. Some games, what if this was all a grand plan?
So what I'll say about that is, I think there's truth to what you're saying in the sense that I do believe
there was more to this than just scratching Couturier.
Yeah, I think that he did very much realize that the room would not like it, and I think that was intentional. I believe that he looked at it as, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, about the idea of, I mentioned it last night, the idea of him being an agent of chaos. I think he hated what the status quo has been for the last few weeks, and this was a way for him to throw the biggest possible bomb into the locker room, see how they react. But the status quo had to change because if they kept playing the way they were playing, they were just going to keep losing, especially given the teams they were playing. This was a way to throw a jolt into the room. I asked Morgan Frost that after the game, like, do you think this was John Tortorella trying to jolt the team? And Morgan Frost basically said, well, going to have to ask Torts that. I don't know. And it was more or less like,
I'm not talking about
Morgan Frost is great because he's a really, really nice guy to interact with. But like, it was, you could see in his eyes, it was kind of like, yeah, good luck getting an answer for Torts. It was hilarious. But I do think that was part of it. The part that I really hope this wasn't really all planned, because I think you could, if you wanted to, theorize that part of the reason why John Tortorella gave Couturier the captaincy was to have this in his back pocket, where, well, if I give him the captaincy, then if I have to scratch somebody, I can scratch him. And I really hope that's not the case, because to me, that's just cruel. That's like you are Lucy with the football. Like you are purposely giving someone hope just to then cruelly tear it away from him and make it even more embarrassing when you go to that. Well, because look, had Sean Couturier not had the captaincy, had he just been Sean Couturier, would it have been a big deal if he gets scratched yesterday? Sure. People would have noticed. It would have been a thing, but it wouldn't have been this big of a thing. The way it becomes
against the Leafs, wearing the C, this was a big deal.
The way it becomes this big of a deal is because he has the C. Did he give him the C just to give himself this possibility in the future? I really hope not, because to me, that's just cruel. Like, that is being straight up manipulative. And I hope the players don't think that's why he did it, because that's how you potentially lose a room. What it does seem like is, at the very least, Tortorella did this knowing that he's going to piss everyone off, and he wanted to do that because he wanted to shake up the status quo, and this is a way to do that. I really hope this wasn't that calculated, but I do absolutely believe there was an element of calculation there in terms of making himself the villain in a Herb Brooks sort of way.
Yes. Like, this team has played with a fuck you attitude all season. It's why they are where they are.
Yeah.
They have the team has been better than the sum of its parts all season. We came into this year like, look at this blue line. They are going to suck. They have not sucked. Hopelessness, as much as you don't want it to, it must be seeping in at some points. Like, you lose 7-0 to Tampa after playing one of your best games of the year. Like, oh man, like that couple of minute stretch against the Leafs last time.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, what can we do? Yeah. The Boston game, same thing.
The last Toronto game, the goalie just isn't good.
The Boston game, you make that comeback after, and then Sandstrom pulls up and doesn't make a stop he needs to stop. That must be setting in. You needed another rallying point. And I think this was it. Was it entirely calculated, giving them C? No, I don't think that's the case.
I really hope not. I don't think he's that cruel.
I think it did give him a future target, a future potential, whether it's I'm going to put him on the fourth line or I'm going to single him out, whatever it is. That is then, because he's the representative, he's the captain of the team. He is the representative of not just himself, but all the guys in the locker room.
Yeah.
You single him out, you're kind of calling out everybody. Like, it's not just calling out Sean Couturier when you bench the captain.
No, you are. And I think this is my biggest concern about the whole thing. And I had a long debate with people in our Discord this morning about this.
Become a diehard, get in the Discord.
But here's the thing. Undeniably, in my mind, in the short term, this had the desired impact that Tortorella wanted. He wanted to jolt the room. Mission accomplished. He jolted the room. He pissed off Sean Couturier. He probably pissed off multiple other guys in that room as well. But what they didn't do last night, which could have happened, I mean, they could have easily just been like, well, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're just going to play the way we want, and then they get blown out 8-0. Like, that was on the table as an option. Instead, they rallied. You had, in particular, and I think Tortorella loved this, the fact that you had guys who I dubbed in our postgame show the young vets, Owen Tippett, Morgan Frost, Cam York. Those are the guys who stepped up, whether it was consciously or subconsciously. It was almost like, all right, well, Coots isn't there to do that stuff. Who's it going to be? I guess it's us. We all we got, we all we need. We got these young guys who they want to be part of the future core, step up and make plays and carry the team. I think Tortorella loved that. So in the short term, Tortorella got exactly what he wanted. He got a win, a big win when they really needed it, and he got a win in a way that he's happy. They blocked a shitload of shots. So they show they're still committed to the Tortorella style. The young guys we want to see more out of pretty much all stepped up. He had to love the reaction. My concern is, and I put this in our Discord, if you could use a tactical nuke a few times, but there's always going to be some fallout. And you never know when ultimately the atmosphere is going to get so saturated with radiation that everyone dies.
This fucking guy.
However, like, I think he used a tactical nuke last year when he benched Travis Sanheim in Calgary with all of his family and friends. He survived that one. There was some fallout. He had to spend the summer smoothing out the edges with Sanheim. They had some conversations. It ends up working out. Sanheim's had a good year. Now he uses another one with benching the captain. Something that, this is not like a manufactured story. Watch the TSN broadcast. Go listen to Sportsnet shows yesterday in Canada. This is a big deal. This is a national story. This is something that straight up embarrassed your captain who you just gave the C to last month. This is a big story. It's another tactical nuke. Maybe John Tortorella, that it's not going to be that big of a deal. Whatever. There's some fallout. He gets by it. Him and Couturier next year are fine. I just wonder how many of these big, embarrassing things a coach can do before the entire team just decides this dude is a cruel asshole and I don't want to play for him anymore.
I appreciate the fact that the team realizes the leash Tortorella has. Because listen, and this is not an indictment of the former leadership group, but we have seen teams kind of just go, fuck this guy.
Yeah.
We have seen that happen. We have seen, and they did not, because they know he ain't getting fired.
Yeah.
Like, we will see how long they're able to do this. I want to talk about the communication of all this in a second, but we got to pay some bills. We got to start it. Oh, talk about the perfect sponsor for today. Coors Light, baby. Listen, man.
Just got to chill sometimes.
This team, Charlie, we've been doing this a long freaking time, and I don't know if we've been able to chill in like 8 years. They just haven't let us, and that's why we need to choose. We need to make the decision consciously to chill, and there's no better way to chill than with an ice-cold Coors Light. So whether you're freaking out about the captain getting scratched, whether the goaltender's going to be here, whether the goaltender's going to be on top of his game, whatever it might be, you need to find the Blue Mountains in your fridge and enjoy a beer as cold as the Rockies, because when everything surrounding your favorite hockey team is on fire, like maybe their playoff chances, for instance, maybe their captain, sometimes you just gotta chill. When you choose to rise above it all, choose chill, choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/PHLY hockey. That's CoorsLight.com/PHLYHOCKEY. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Now, the thing I think Kelly and I took the biggest, the most umbrage with was the way this was communicated. And now I think it was, again, this was, like you said, a tactical nuke. This was purposeful. We all know Sean Couturier, like I've said, he hasn't played a full season since he was 26. He's now 31. Whether it be for, COVID-shortened season reasons or he missed 2 years because of injury, whatever it is. He's probably banged up. He's probably fatigued. He hasn't done this in a really long time. You could have sold this as he's dealing with something. He's sick. I've never seen a team get sick like this team. Someone's always out with an illness. It happens. Someone, Labushkin last night for the Maple Leafs, out with the flu. You could have sold this as anything.
Yeah.
They made a point to say this was a healthy scratch. And that's fine, because this was part of your strategy here, and it worked. Couturier didn't seem to know why. I need more out of you is not enough of an answer for a guy with Couturier's pedigree. He can be as much of an asshole as he wants to Bobby Brink, because Bobby Brink ain't earned shit. And maybe that's fair, maybe it isn't. Life ain't fair. Sean Couturier has earned enough. That's why the coach presumably put the fucking letter on his sweater.
Yeah, right.
To have enough respect to say, this is what I need out of you. And when Couturier flat out says, I don't love the way I've been treated recently. This isn't I'm scratched tonight and I don't like it. It's he's noticed his ice time going down. He's noticed he's playing with the worst line mates he's played with since he was 21 years old. Yeah. Like, this is... Tortorella has one hell of a career. He is going to the Hall of Fame. He has a Stanley Cup ring. We're hoping he wins another one here. He's broken some eggs along the way. And now some of them, you look at Pierre-Luc Dubois and go, yeah, he was right. You look at some other guys and go, I probably could have handled that one better. You know?
Like Matt Zuccarello, maybe you should have given him a little bit more ice time,
bud. Could have handled this one a little better. Do you think this could be a long-term problem with Sean Couturier?
Well, I think that just depends on both Sean Couturier's attitude towards this and also John Tortorella's attitude. The fact that Tortorella was able to bury the hatchet with Travis Sanheim gives me confidence that they could. And I think like Travis Sanheim is not the same personality as Sean Couturier, but they're both quality people who I think are not in the business of necessarily holding grudges forever. I think they are both mature enough people that they would be willing to bury the hatchet if a coach makes the effort. I get the sense that John Tortorella made the effort, especially in the offseason, to basically be like clean slate. Kind of did the same thing with Joel Farabee. Like, they butted heads. It was honestly a relatively similar situation where Farabee was playing despite the fact that he wasn't in the best of shape. You know, he had the offseason surgery. Tortorella was hard on him. Then it seemed like Tortorella ultimately acknowledged, like, I'm going to give you a pass this year. You better be better next year, but I'm going to give you a pass for last year. They butted heads a little bit this year, but Farabee's playing much better.
Pretty sure Farabee led the forwards in ice time last night,
so
if not even second.
It seems like at the very least they've learned to coexist.
Yeah.
So I do think that they can get past this. However, it's undeniably a risk because this was undeniably a really embarrassing thing for Sean Couturier. He is the captain. Captains don't get scratched. The way that people around the league and around the entirety of hockey fandom are going to look at this is, man, if John Tortorella scratched the captain, he must be playing fucking terribly, and he might just be cooked. Like, Sean Couturier has a lot of pride, and this was a national story because captains are scratched so infrequently that, yeah, Sean Couturier is not the kind of guy who, generally speaking, is going to go up in front of the media and say the things he said to us yesterday. But because this was that big of a deal, he did. And, you know, can they get past it? I absolutely think they can, but it's not a guarantee. I can't put myself in the mind of Sean Couturier. I certainly can't put myself in the mind of John Tortorella. I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to be in that brain.
Got enough of my own problems.
Exactly. But I don't know. It's a risk. And the risk is that you don't know if you can salvage the situation. Now, you hope you can. John Tortorella probably fully believes he can. But who knows? He doesn't know the way Sean Couturier thinks. And if he can't, then suddenly he's got a captain that hates him.
Now, we've said, like, this was as much a message to the whole entire team as it was Couturier, presumably. Again, can't put ourselves in their head, but looking at the way things have been done forever in sports, like, but I look at the way the Morgan Frost situation unfolded. You know, he was scratched 10 times. Finally, he misses the January 4th game, and he goes into the office, and they finally have it out. And John Tortorella now loves Morgan Frost is now the 1C of this team.
Likes him more than Sean Couturier.
He looks, but that's my, like, you look at Sean Couturier, at least his outward personality. He's lowered his ice time. He's put him on the fourth line.
And to be clear, I want to make this abundantly clear in my eyes. Mm-hmm. I have zero issue with him demoting Sean Couturier to the bottom six. He deserves that.
Yeah, okay. You just said he's a guy with pride, but he puts him on the fourth line with Nick Deslauriers.
No, and that's a shot at his pride. But to me, that's not crossing the line the way that scratching the captain does.
Could it be after he does this, Coots doesn't come in and be like, yo, man, what the fuck? Like, really, you have me out there with Nick Deslauriers? Yeah, and now I have to push him further. I have to push this guy further. And when he says, I want more out of you, like, yeah, he could just score more. Like, that would be cool. They need that.
That'd be great, yeah.
But, like, I need more out of you. You can't just be the silent captain, you know? I need you to be fucking fired up. Because when he called that timeout in the Boston game, it didn't say a word. I looked at Couturier. He wasn't the one leading either. He eventually stood up. I didn't notice him like, all right, let's fucking go, boys. And it was not necessarily Giroux's character to be like that all the time. But in those situations, he was wired, man. And maybe he just wants a little bit more of that kind of leadership out of his captain.
And that's very possible. And if that's the case, that would be understandable. He needs to communicate that to Couturier.
Yes.
They need to hash this out because it cannot, like, and to be clear, Sean Couturier said that they did talk, that it's not as if this was not a case of the Travis Sanheim thing last year where Travis Sanheim got a text saying, sorry, you're not playing tonight. Like, you know why. Bye, JT. Like, no, this was, they did have a conversation. They talked about it. Sean Couturier's point is that he didn't come away from that conversation really understanding what John Tortorella actually wants from him other than like, more. Well, I guess score more goals. I guess like, hey, I'm trying. I'm doing my best here. If there are those issues that John Tortorella has with Sean Couturier, maybe he's got a point, but they got to hash it out like men. And maybe you're right. Maybe that is part of this. Maybe John Tortorella is playing a little Morgan Frost game here where, you know, he's trying to force a rise out of Couturier the same way that he forced a rise out of Morgan Frost, the same way that he's forced a rise out of multiple players, same way he forced a rise out of Rasmus Ristolainen that first year when they were trying to change his entire style of play. Maybe that's part of it. It certainly could be. And that's a way this could ultimately resolve itself. I'm not saying this is unsalvageable. I have enough respect for Sean Couturier as a person, and I have enough respect for John Tortorella as a coach to believe that this is not the end of their relationship. I think they can fix this. But again, it's a risk because it's not necessarily a guarantee it can be fixed. You hope it can be fixed. Tortorella certainly thinks it can. Couturier maybe even thinks it can because I don't think he wants to leave Philly. He wants to find a way to make this work. He's got a no movement clause, but they still need to figure out a way to make it work. And it remains to be seen whether they can do that.
And that's the other part of this that worries me is he is entirely untradeable, both because of his contract and the way he's playing right now.
Exactly.
Like,
this isn't even a case of like,
you can't move on.
This isn't even a case of like, well, they're trying to push Couturier to be willing to waive his no move clause. You just scratched him. He's been struggling for 2 months. Even if he waives his no move clause, nobody's going to want him now.
Like, what, are you going to cover 50% of 775 for the next 6 years?
Yeah, like they got to figure this out.
You
like,
want to be Minnesota?
Yeah, this is not Tortorella playing three-dimensional chess to try to get Couturier out. He's not tradable right now, even if he is willing to waive his no move. He's only tradable if he plays better.
Sometimes, and I don't know how to do this. I was going to do an upgrade in the room. Sometimes you need to upgrade your room. And the best way to do that, it's with Empire Today. With Empire Today, you get shop at home convenience, the right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a price match guarantee. Empire Today is the best place to get new flooring. So, you know they've got copycats. But what the copycats can't beat, it's Empire Today on quality, service, speed. So you know what they do? They advertise low-quality products, and Empire simply won't carry. Empire Today won't promise the lowest prices because anyone who does that is putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in their own. The Empire philosophy is to help you find what you need, not overwhelm you with thousands of choices and substitutes. What they leave out of their selection is as important as what they put in. Empire's product team exhaustively combs through thousands of product samples each year to find the perfect styles. And the virtual floor designer is a great way to see how new floors will look in any space. It's easy. Just snap a picture and instantly see how new floors will look in your room. So schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive a $350 off discount when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions apply. See EmpireToday.com/PHLY for details. And as always, 1-800-588-2300 Empire All right, Charlie.
So there's another thing I want to talk about, not necessarily specific to Couturier, but a concern I have about John Tortorella and his standing among the team.
Okay.
I worry if this falls apart in the sense of like the team just decides that John Tortorella is full of shit and he's not worth their time anymore. And I'm not saying that's going to happen. I do think the fact that obviously Danny Briere and Keith Jones are very much behind him gives him a strong foundation, because they know they can't just run this guy out of town the way they ran AV out of town. Now, granted, AV also kind of
quit.
Yeah, I think he was ready to be done as well. But like they also, I think, lost faith in Dave Haxtell. You could say that that's justified or not, but I think they did. I think that was part of it.
Oh yeah,
certainly why they ultimately had to let him go. Yeah. So this happens. I worry that, because I think this is absolutely true. I do think that, like, Danny Briere was interviewed in the GM's meetings when this happened. I obviously was not there. I believe it was down in Florida. But one thing that Danny Briere said, which very much jumped out at me, was, this is John Tortorella. The one thing you have to say about John Tortorella is he treats everyone equally. Accountability, okay. This shows that no one is above, the coach's opinion of how they play. I don't agree with that. I do not think that John Tortorella actually does treat every player equally.
No.
And I think that is a myth that Danny Briere can say over and over again, and John Tortorella can say it over and over again. But I look at the facts, and I look at the fact that if you are someone that John Tortorella likes, you get a much longer leash than someone who John Tortorella doesn't like. Perfect example. And I am not shitting on this guy because I am a big Scott Laughton fan. Okay. Scott Laughton in December and January, he had a 19-game stretch, okay, where he had 1 goal and 4 assists. Yeah. 1 goal in 19 games. His underlying metrics were about 40% expected goal share when he's on the ice. He was playing like garbage. We talked about it on the show multiple times. I wonder if they're going to scratch Scott Laughton. You know what they didn't do? They never scratched Scott Laughton. And we theorized one of the reasons for that was, well, he's the only guy on the team with a letter. You can't scratch the de facto captain. It's going to throw a bomb into the room. Well, yesterday, John Tortorella showed he's more than willing to scratch the actual captain, not just the de facto captain. If you're willing to scratch Sean Couturier, why weren't you willing to scratch Scott Laughton when he was playing even worse than Sean Couturier was playing? The only explanation I could think of, John Tortorella likes Scott Laughton more than he likes Sean Couturier, and he's not the only one. Let's compare Bobby Brink and Tyson Foerster. Tyson Foerster, I get it, and I think you could certainly make a statistical case that the difference between the two is that Tyson Foerster is a more complete two-way player. Yeah. His underlying numbers are certainly much better than Brink's. However, Tyson Foerster went on a run where he could not do anything in terms of offense.
Nothing.
You could have easily justified sending him down. Certainly could have justified scratching him, but could easily have justified saying, you know what, he needs some more offensive confidence. We're going to send him down.
The Cam York thing. You did that. We need more out of him, so we're going to send him down until he learns to be more aggressive.
Tyson Foerster stayed in the lineup, was never sent down. Bobby Brink, it's like he has a couple bad weeks, and then it's like, all right, you're scratched forever, you're sent down. Owen Tippett versus Morgan Frost.
That's the one.
Same thing. You're looking at these two guys over the last 2 seasons. Owen Tippett had 3 more points than Morgan Frost last year. He has 8 more points than Morgan Frost this year, despite the fact that he's played 7 more games. Their offensive production, pretty damn similar. Their underlying numbers over the last 2 seasons, also pretty damn similar. One guy is locked into the lineup and can go through slumps and doesn't have to worry about getting benched.
And he does.
And one guy has to be terrified if he has like 2 bad games that he's going to get scratched. In my mind, watching this from afar, there is absolutely a double standard between comparable guys who John Tortorella likes and John Tortorella doesn't like. And the guys he likes don't get scratched and don't get fucked with. And the guys who he doesn't like get scratched and get fucked with. And it makes it harder because if I'm noticing this, you can be damn sure the players are.
They know.
And it makes it harder to preach this accountability for everybody thing when you are holding guys to different standards. And I do think that is a concern of mine, that if he loses the room at some point in the future, that could be a reason. Because I'm looking at this and I'm like, if you didn't scratch Laughton when he was playing like garbage in December and January, like, fine. You can't scratch the captain. Then don't scratch Couturier now. If you wanted to say it was all about accountability, you should have scratched Laughton when he was playing like shit. And I didn't think he should have. But if you're going to do this, you should have done that then.
And there's, I think it was Bill Parcells who once said, I don't treat everyone equal, I treat everyone fair. And it's basically like, yeah, man, like Lawrence Taylor cannot make a curfew and smoke crack because he's Lawrence Taylor, but the backup, yeah, I'm going to cut him, and that's one thing. But the standard of awesome player, like Kevin Hayes was the team's second leading scorer last year. Didn't like him.
Yeah.
So he gets treated a certain way and other guys don't. There doesn't seem to be a criteria to reach the standard other than I like you.
I think there is, like, Tortorella would, if you hook Tortorella up to a lie detector and said, do you hold everybody to the same standard? He would pass because he 100% believes he is.
Oh, he believes it.
He believes that he is absolutely holding everyone to an equal standard of accountability. The thing is that, like, he has clear biases, and the biases in my mind do get in the way of how he evaluates players.
This whole thing is, Charlie, we have this whole outline. We have done 42 minutes just on this right now. And I don't even really want to be done with it because it is just such an interesting look at this.
There's a lot of angles here. There really are.
I know, like, I have kind of waved off the idea because I honestly, a lot of times don't want to think about it. And I think this stuff gets overblown, the way players on the outside react to it. And it's like, who's going to sign here? The players who we offer the most money to. You know where they're going to go? The place that offers them the most money, whether it's here or somewhere else. Look at this roster. Look at the assets they have. Look at what they need. They're going to have to buy someone at some point, probably a few guys. Like, we don't have a 1C, a 1D, or a 1G right now, I don't think. We'll see about the goalie. But as of this moment, he ain't here. Could this be a hindrance down the line? Like, do you think teams are going to look at this and go, like, my stance has always been, like, if you make a long-term decision based on the coach, that's asinine. Like, you shouldn't be paying your agent then because he's not getting you the best deal. Like, John Tortorella, I think there's 9 or 10 guys in the league who've had their jobs longer than him. He got hired a year and a half ago. Like, the coach ain't going to be here forever.
True.
He will not be longer than your long-term.
He's not young.
Yeah. No coach is going to be longer than your long-term contract. It just isn't going to happen unless, like, you end up playing for Tampa. And they only have so much cap space. But do you think this could be one of the things that prevents the Flyers from getting what they need to be cup contenders?
So is it a factor that can't be brushed aside like it's nothing? Yes, it's a factor. However, there's a couple reasons why I'm personally not that concerned about it. The main reason I'm not that concerned about it is simple. I never expected that free agency is going to be the way they get these guys.
Okay.
That I've always viewed it as, if they're going to get stars, because stars so rarely hit free agency. If they're going to get the stars they need, it's going to be because they traded for them. Now, don't get me wrong, this could still have an impact because one of the ways you get stars in trades is because they're going to be willing to sign an extension with you. Like, when Mark Stone got traded to Vegas, he signed with Vegas and immediately signed a contract extension. Had he not been willing to do that, they probably don't make that trade. They don't give up the assets that they gave up because it's like, well, we're not giving that up for a rental. We'll give that up for, 7 more years of Mark Stone past this deadline, though. So there is a part of that where a guy, a star player who they are looking for at the trade deadline might say, I don't know if I want to play for John Tortorella. The flip side of that, however, and this is, I think, the way the Flyers would answer that question, is they don't want star players who are scared to play for John Tortorella. Those are not the kinds of stars they would want. Now, it's a bit of a concern because what that does is it does potentially limit your pool of potential stars.
It's like how
there ain't a ton of them.
It's like how we talk about the GM and president thing. Like, maybe the perfect candidate is in he's part of the family, and then good. But it does limit your pool.
It does. So that is a concern, but I don't think it is. Number one, we don't know how many players just are like, I would never want to play for John Tortorella. I just don't want to deal with that shit. I'm sure there are some. Like, I'm sure there's enough players. It's probably in double digits of current NHL players who are like, if I'm a free agent, I am never playing for John Tortorella. That looks like a shit show. And I don't blame them. Like, but there are others, like, and I know this guy is far from a star, but like a guy like Garnet Hathaway. A guy like Garnet Hathaway from afar is going to look at John Tortorella and be like, I want to play for that guy. That's the type of coach I want to play for.
Because if he became a coach, he'd be that guy.
Exactly. Well, actually, Garnet Hathaway is a lot more urbane than I think you give him credit for. He went to an Ivy League school. His dad looks like a philosophy professor with a gigantic beard and long hair. Garnet Hathaway is a lot more intelligent than I think you think he is.
I don't think he's unintelligent. But the way he plays hockey,
oh sure, he plays like a madman.
Yeah,
he plays like a madman. That's why people love him.
I think he would probably continue to be a madman behind the back. He might draw up the perfect goddamn offensive system or whatever, neutral zone forecheck, but he also might like threaten the referees and get suspended. You know,
fair.
Like I can see that.
Yeah. What I'll say is that I don't think it will remove them from even most players. Okay. It is a slight concern though that, like, for example. And I never brought this up because I did not want to add fuel to your delusion about Elias Pettersson. I legitimately wondered if Elias Pettersson would ever in a million years want to play for John Tortorella.
I mean, he plays for Tocchet.
Yeah, and I don't think that has been the smoothest relationship either, from what I've heard.
He did just sign.
I know, but I think that might have been one of the reasons why it took so long for him to sign.
No, and I have heard similar things.
Yes.
Like not specifically about Tortorella or that player, but just like, yeah, might not have been on his list. Maybe this ain't exactly where I want to say I'm gonna go.
Yeah, like if I'm gonna sign an offer sheet, I might not sign it with the crazy man as head coach.
Yeah, I get it. Like, listen, as someone who has prioritized his own happiness and mental welfare above all for 20 years, I get it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want a boss yelling at me all the time either.
Yeah, but I do think that the way the Flyers would look at it is if there's a star player who doesn't want to come to Philly because he doesn't want to play for Tortorella, they don't think he's the kind of star player that they want anyway. That's the way they would look at it.
And this is just who they're always going to be, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. They're never going to lose this.
We started out the show saying, like, we're always going to have a job. Like, there's a CBA coming up in a couple years. I don't expect a work stoppage. But when there inevitably is, we will still be doing a show every day because this team will be doing shit that makes us talk about them, Charlie.
Yep.
And it's... Do you think they want to be this way? Because I kind of think they do.
Yes, I do. I've been turning this idea over in my head the last couple days about the Flyers as the chaos organization. That it's always something with this team. That there's always something, and like, look, some of this stuff is completely out of their control. Like, I'm not gonna say that they like intentionally had their goaltender arrested. Like, obviously, there's some bad shit that happens, like Oscar Lindblom getting cancer. There's stuff that happens. It's completely out of their control. That is just like, this is awful. You know, on two completely different levels of awful, but you know what I mean. But there's also a lot of things that happen that are manufactured chaos.
Yes,
and I do think that the Flyers, people who grew up in the Flyers family. Like, this is normal. Chaos is normal. And I think it's gotten to the point where they almost think that chaos is good. That, like, you know, diamonds are forged under pressure kind of thing. I believe that one of the reasons why John Tortorella scratched Sean Couturier is because he felt like people were getting too comfortable. And it's like, you know what? I need to fuck shit up because these guys, the status quo is not good, and I need to do something to jolt this team. So I am going to scratch the captain because that's the biggest bomb I can throw in the room. And I like the idea that Danny Briere and Keith Jones are looking from afar and being like, oh, there goes Torts again. Doing crazy
I don't believe
stuff.
that.
I think they are friggin' in the background cheering him on. Like, this is what it means to be a Flyer. You have to be uncomfortable all the time. That's the only way that we win. That's the only way that we are ourselves. I tweeted this out as half a joke a couple days ago, but like, I honestly believe that one of the biggest mistakes that Ron Hextall made was he tried to make the Flyers boring. And everyone around the team, all the alumni and shit are like, we do crazy shit. We go after every free agent. We're in on every trade. That's what we do. That's who we are. Like, this is the Flyers. The Flyers, I think, as long as they have guys at the top who play for the team, who are part of the family, they are always going to be perfectly fine with the Flyers being the chaos organization. They will.
I just think about the people making decisions or surrounding this organization. Like, Keith Jones is the one that pulled Eric Lindros out of the tub.
Oh, geez.
You know, like John LeClaire is on the team that goes to the final and then fires its coach. And he lives through the entire Lindros saga during his time here. You know, like that's part of what makes the Flyers the Flyers.
I mean, shit, like
Danny Briere is on the team. Like he's new. It's his, first year that they, 07-08's his first year. But like, they fire Stevens after a year and a half, and then the whole Mike Richards thing unfolds, like the Briz stuff. He lives through all of that. The dudes who run this organization have only known chaos, and they fucking love it here.
No, like legitimately. I mean, when I became a Flyers fan, it was 1997. I got into the Flyers during the Cup run. For the next 5 years, the Flyers were one of the best teams in hockey. They were a cup contender every year. They were great. From 1997 through 2002, they had 6 different coaches. They were a really good team that fired their coach every year. This is who they are. They are the chaos organization.
What's that, 7?
It was Terry.
That 6 years?
It was Terry Berry, who they fired after they lose in the cup final. Then they get Wayne Cashman. Then they get Roger Neilson and all the ridiculousness that happened with that. Yeah. Then Craig Ramsey. Yeah. Then Bill Barber. Then Ken Hitchcock. That's 6 coaches from 1997 through 2002. When the team was really good. This is the Flyers. This is who they are. This is the team you root for, gang. Just get used to it.
And there's 2 dudes in the front office who lived through that.
Yeah.
Like, that's absolutely insane. You know what else is...
what else is insane,
You know what
Bill?
else is insane? The spring purchase market, listen, the spring purchase market, it's here. It's heating up quickly. And many clients, especially first-time home buyers, are reaching out to our friends at Mortgage CS because they want to be ready when the rates drop. This is not an uncommon strategy. It's what everyone is doing. And that means there's going to be limited inventory and strong demand. So competition will remain extremely fierce in the housing market throughout this year. So you need to get in touch with Mortgage CS to prepare and ensure you will be able to stand out and make the strongest offers possible. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or you're looking to refinance, or you just want to know what you have to do to qualify for a mortgage when the time is right for you, Mortgage CS should be a consideration no matter your situation, because Mortgage CS is made up of honest, good people who always work hard to not let their clients down. But don't take it from me. Check out their reviews on Google. Check out their reviews on Google. Spoiler, they average 5 stars. Let's take a look at their most recent review from just a couple of days ago. This is from Monday. I learned about Mortgage CS from a podcast, so they're just like you. I learned about Mortgage CS from a podcast, and I am so glad I made the call. Ben, Alec, and the team were top-notch throughout the entire process. They shopped us around for the best rate possible. In a time with insane house prices and wildly unpredictable rates, the team was able to monitor the rates and got us to catch the lowest dip in months. Their communication is next level, which helps when you are a first-time home buyer. Ben came to closing as well to help explain where exactly our money was going and how to avoid any scams. We couldn't be happier with them and look forward to future business when the time comes. And now that last part, I think, is real important, because when you sign and the house, well, it's not yours. You got to pay the bank for the next 30 years or whatever. But when you sign, suddenly now, it's out there. Everyone knows you did this. Right. You are going to get endless mail about all sorts of, you need to pay this now or else we're going to take your house away. It's all a scam, and you don't know that unless someone explains it to you, and that's part of the outstanding customer service Mortgage CS provides. So when you hear the word mortgage, think of Mortgage CS, think of Ben and Alec. Save Ben's telephone number, 267-391-7425, or email Ben at mortgagecs.com. Call or text anytime, day or night. If you're not in the housing market right now, talk some Philly sports. Ask. Scratching the captain. Thumbs up, thumbs down. I bet you get a response. Check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to get started. This advertisement is not a commitment to lend or extend credit. Mortgage CS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker. All loans are subject to credit approval. Certain restrictions may apply. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. Visit mortgagecs.com for more information. We have so much other stuff to talk about, and it's this is the most interesting thing by far.
And I also love discussing the Flyers' inclination towards chaos.
It is.
I love it. Because
the evidence is there.
It's undeniable.
This is not like a crazy theory. This has been our entire lives following this team.
When they fired Hextall, it was bias for action. Say what you will about Chuck Fletcher. Guy did stuff.
He did stuff. It was just all wrong.
It was just mostly bad stuff, but he did
turned wrong.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, the Ryan Ellis trade, still, like, good trade, just didn't work.
I just think the Flyers, number one, they believe that players being uncomfortable is actually a good thing, not a bad thing, which is not something that is shared by a lot of franchises in the league, but the Flyers very much believe it. Number two, I think the Flyers love being the center of national attention. They love it. They love being the topic of conversation.
Yes.
They hate when they are in the background. And they love it when, like, the national podcasts are talking about Philadelphia. Obviously not, like, in a bad way. Like, I'm sure they were absolutely horrified when Marek and Friedman last year were talking about how Rangers fans invaded the Wells Fargo Center. Like, that's bad publicity.
That's bad, yeah.
But, like, on some level, they loved being the center of the hockey world during the Gauthier-Drysdale stuff. They ate that shit up.
They got to get out there and get their message out. You know, you don't want to be a Flyer, you ain't going to be a Flyer.
They eat that shit up. They love it.
Absolutely. And it's, like, in our conversations with various members of the front office through the last year or so, Charlie, like, the idea that they were irrelevant, like, digging themselves out of that is the most important thing. They hate the idea that they're the niche team in town. And listen, it's hockey. It's always going to be but it's still going to be on people's minds.
Yeah.
And the fact that it wasn't for several years, even when they were like borderline playoff team, you know, unless everyone threw the bracelets on the ice, no one was talking about the Flyers. Thank God last night.
Yeah, also props fans for not throwing the friendship bracelets on the ice.
Way to go.
Props. Well done.
If they don't hold on to that lead, who's to say what happens, Charlie? But no, it's like, I think that is a huge part of it as well. Like, we're going to do stuff just because that's who we are. And the evidence exists. Like, it's true.
No, there's a reason why John Tortorella feels like, for years, felt like, you know, he just seems like a guy who could be a Flyers head coach. It's because he does shit like this. He's all about making players uncomfortable because he believes uncomfort leads to success. He has been successful in his career, so I can't say he's wrong. It's just like, and let's bring it full circle back to what we were talking about at the start of the show. I just wonder if there is a breaking point to all that discomfort that he is putting the players under. If at some point the players might be like, I just don't buy what this guy is selling, because maybe not to the degree of Vigneault, because Vigneault's system was a little bit more temperamental, but Tortorella needs full buy-in for his system to work.
Yeah, you have to be willing to break your foot.
He needs everybody to be fully sold that his system will result in wins. And if half the team just hates him to the degree that they think he's just full of shit when anything he says is bullshit, this house of cards falls apart real quick.
It does. And we have talked about this, their strategy for a rebuild. And I have, a lot of people have kind of had an issue, like they're kind of just doing what Hextall did all over again. It's the same mistake again. While I believe you as well, kind of tear it down, guys, they're not going that way. And the one thing I'll say is Buffalo made everyone comfortable. We're gonna tank. We're gonna get all these great top picks, 10 consecutive top 10 picks. And then they had this the last couple summers, they had the strategy of we don't want our guys worrying about their place in the organization. We don't want our guys worrying about their next contract. They signed everybody except Casey Mittelstadt, who they traded.
Yeah.
But basically everyone got the long-term deal, even if it was a year or two early. They're like, here you go. Don't worry about shit. The Buffalo Sabres stink. They're below the Flyers in the standings, despite drafting in the top 10 for 10 straight years, and everyone having that level of comfortability.
Yeah, and I think another team...
It might not be a perfect comparison. There might be teams that did it that way and it worked, but I see where the Flyers are coming from, even though I might not necessarily agree with the strategy overall.
Yeah, and another team, too, maybe even a better comparison than Buffalo, Ottawa. Same thing. I mean, Ottawa has Stützle locked up. They have Tkachuk locked up. They have Shabbat locked up. They have, who's that? Josh Norris locked up to an $8 million contract. They locked everybody up thinking, we got our pieces. It's possible.
Well, they second worst in the East?
They're real bad.
Yeah.
That maybe there is something to the idea of you got to keep guys hungry, that you got to keep them on their toes. And maybe the Flyers take that too far, possibly. But maybe there is something to the idea of you can't let guys get too comfortable because that leads to stagnation, and stagnation leads to mediocrity.
All right. I don't think we need to do like a 90-minute show today, Charlie, but there are a couple things. We're going to talk about Harrison. We're going to talk about Frost and Tippett and the young guys, our post games this week, I am sure. I did want to tackle Ginning and Adder today, though, because it was an interesting decision last night, certainly, to bring Ginning back up.
Well, with how Stahl's playing, I don't think it was that.
But
that wasn't that outlandish.
It does, Mark Stahl, we all see as one of Torts' guys.
To a degree, but he's been scratched him a lot.
He's been scratched a bunch, but Adam Ginning is what? 8th or 9th on the organizational depth chart, Emil Andre made this team out of camp. He didn't. Ronnie Adder's been playing. Ginning didn't. These guys aren't exactly the top priority when it comes to blue line depth in this organization.
True.
Now they are getting their shot. Sure, 3 defensemen got hurt and 1 got traded, so someone has to play. They're out of dudes.
Accurate.
But, it could have been someone else. It could have been Louis Belpedio or whoever the hell.
If they wanted to.
It's these dudes. I haven't hated what I've seen out of them. I think a lot of people are more impressed than what the actual results have been, but it's a result of, really, we got Eric Johnson and Mark Stahl out there, and so they're just happy to see anyone. What are you seeing out of these two?
Well, so it's fascinating because I, if anything, have seen more positive feedback on Twitter about Adam Ginning than Ronnie Adder. And I think I know why, and I also think I know why it doesn't match up with the numbers at all. So giving the numbers performance. Ronnie Adder, by the numbers, actually pretty good. He's got a 48.9 expected goal share of 5-on-5 thus far, which, given the fact that the team has been outchanced in most of these games, actually pretty good. My guess is that's above what the Flyers team has done in those games. And when he's been on the ice, the Flyers are at a 51.02 actual goal share. So by the numbers, Adder's looking pretty good. I think Adder, he misses the net a lot, which is frustrating. He has some bad reads occasionally, but I think on the whole, I have been satisfied with Adder's play. Ginning's the guy who's really turning heads. What's funny is his numbers suck. So when he's been on the ice, the Flyers have a 32.39% expected goal share. They've been outscored 1-0. So why do people like what they've seen from Ginning so much? Here's the reason, in my mind. Ginning is one of those guys who's really good at generating defense.
Yeah.
It was one of those joke things we used to say on Twitter and on Broad Street Hockey a lot of times where, man, he generates a lot of defense. And by generating a lot of defense, that's blocks a lot of shots. He breaks up a lot of plays. He's defending well. And I think that's true. Adam Ginning's defensive numbers have been really good. The Flyers have not allowed much when he's been on the ice. They've essentially created nothing. He's been on the ice for 20 minutes. And granted, very small sample size. He's been on the ice for 20 minutes of 5-on-5 thus far. The Flyers in those 20 minutes have generated 3 shots on goal.
It's not great.
Basically, the reason why Ginning looks good to some people is because he's breaking up plays. He's blocking shots. He's hitting people. He's doing the defense. He's doing the defense legitimately really well. When he's on the ice, the Flyers never have the puck.
He needs to be good at defense.
He does. It's a requirement.
Because they're going to be on defense when he's out there.
He is not helping the Flyers at all to possess the puck. And is it possible that he could get better at that? This is still a very small sample. Certainly is. Thus far, all of his positive plays have been defensive because the Flyers have essentially never had the puck when he's been on the ice.
And to that point, Ronnie Adder, we expect offense out of. He's produced none, so we're not that impressed.
He had an assist last night.
He did. 20 shot attempts, 5 on goal for Ronnie Adder. He is Fulton Reed.
I love that comparison of him being Fulton Reed.
He needs a GPS to find the net. and some of these blasts, I love it, fire away, but hit the goalie every now and then.
It would be so much better if you'd only gotten 4 on goal because then he would really be Fulton Reed, 1 out of 5. Fulton Reed, if you're not aware, for people who are very old or very young, Fulton Reed, major character in the Mighty Ducks movies. He was the slap shot guy, the tough guy. Great character.
I don't want to think about someone too young to know who Fulton Reed is. That makes me sad. The last thing before we get out of here, actually, let's let me tell you real quick about our friends over at FOCO. FOCO has the absolute best officially licensed gear for all sports and fandoms. Whether it's hoodies, jackets, beachwear, even overalls, there's something for fans for almost every occasion. Listen, opening day coming up. You want to get ready. You want to be geared up in your Philly baseball apparel. The best way to do it, it's with FOCO. And if you're in the market for some accessories, toys, or collectibles for your man cave, she shed, or podcast set, you've got to use FOCO for your team gear needs there as well. FOCO always has our back for Philly sports, and they have yours too. Get the best gear around by using the link in the description of this show. For all non-presale items, use promo code PHLY10. That's promo code PHLY10 for 10% off at FOCO today. Charlie, I have to get this in because it's going to piss you off.
Okay.
Travis Konecny. No goals, 4 assists in 6 games since he's returned from the injury. Those games are against Florida, Tampa, San Jose, Toronto, Boston, Toronto. 2 of the 4 assists came against San Jose. Now, listen, I hate to bring this up.
No, you don't. You love to bring this up.
I do. I love it so much.
You love to bring this up.
But when was the last time the Flyers played meaningful games? To me,
I don't know, Bill. When was the last time the Flyers played meaningful games?
The answer to that question is the 2020 playoff bubble, in which he scored 0 goals and 7 assists in 16 games. Now, I love Travis Konecny. If they re-sign him, I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to look at the terms and go, was this good or bad? Let's see. Does it give you any pause that the only times the Flyers have played meaningful games in the last 5 years, he hasn't really shown up?
Okay, well, so number one, I did find it really funny when I saw somebody comment in our comment section during the show about this is what, when we were talking about Couturier, of like, this is why they should have given the C to Konecny. And I wanted to stop the show and be like, oh, I can't wait until you see what we talk about later in this show. Because if T had the C, you'd be screaming at him because he doesn't have goals. Here's what I think is actually going on with Konecny, though. And I think this is my guess is this is the very easy to understand explanation. I don't think he's at 100%.
Yeah.
I think he came back from what I suspect is an oblique injury too soon. I think in particular, it's hurting the quality of his shot. It just doesn't seem like it has the same zip.
The puck handling is atrocious.
It seems like, to me, this is 80 to 90% Travis Konecny. And, like, they need him. They need 80 to 90% Travis Konecny because he's still better than the vast majority of the forwards on the team, even at 80 to 90%.
Yes.
But I am not going to bury him and say that this is an example of him not being clutch because I don't think he's fully healthy. I think he kind of rushed back from the injury because they're in a playoff race, because he's a key player. He's probably their most talented player. And I think they are getting out about as much out of him as they can, given the fact that I don't think he's close to 100%. And that's just a theory.
His line was very good last night, despite his, the flubbing of the puck to me and the whiffing.
He was definitely,
it feels like the last couple games he's had a hole in his stick.
He was definitely, like, out of that line, he was the third most. He was the least effective guy on the line because Tippett and Frost were both fantastic. And Konecny was just kind of, like, he can still skate real fast. He can still carry the puck. He can still play that role. But he's not having the same shift-over-shift impact. Like, there was that one, and I wanted to put this in my article because it was such a ridiculous play. Usually when a guy gets a breakaway, it's because, like, he was cheating. There's a stretch pass. He's wide open.
Oh, my God.
Owen Tippett manufactured a breakaway. Like, when he starts that rush up the ice, this is midway through the second period. When he starts that rush up the ice, there are 2 guys in front of him, and he just blew past them.
They had it. They were there.
Yeah.
And he was just like, nope.
Yeah,
and
he just flies past them. He creates a breakaway for himself to the point where it's a 2-on-none. Like, TK, you got to finish that. I don't even think
that was the right play. I always say
I don't think Tippett was wrong for passing because Konecny had a wide open net to shoot at as a result. Konecny just has to bury that puck.
Yeah. I just, and again, he is playing hurt. And that's when you get to the playoffs, you will never be 100%.
No one is.
And like Matt Tkachuk, what made
the one guy who is 100%? The guy who wins the Conn Smythe.
Yeah.
The Conn Smythe is a what do you call it? I'm forgetting.
Cyborg?
No, it's like
he's got the best dealer.
It's the Conn Smythe is a war of attrition.
Yes.
The guy who wins the Conn Smythe is the guy who's the least hurt by the end.
Like, oh, you got 2 feet that work? Yeah, that's one more than everyone else, dude.
Exactly.
No, and that's absolutely. They're going to give him, in all likelihood, on July 1st, a contract that is 6 to 8 years in length, potentially $8 to $10 million a season. I worry.
I mean, okay. If you want to worry, you can. And I said this even before the playoff run when he struggled. And even after it, it's so inexplicable to me that he struggled during that run because his game just seems so tailor-made for the playoffs.
He seems like that guy.
You would think that he's a guy who would play better in these games because he's such a ball of energy. He plays physical. He's chippy. He's in scrums all the time. Like, you would think that his production would jump the way, and granted, the last couple games, I know he had the big goal last night. Last couple games, Lawton hasn't played as well, but I think Lawton is a guy who does seem to play better when the games get chippier, when the games get tighter. I would expect Konecny to be that guy. I still believe that will come, that he will have a big playoff run at some point over the next couple years if they re-sign him, which I think they're going to. I think that's coming, but until he does it, it's fair game to criticize him that he hasn't done it yet.
Do you think he signs an extension on July 1st? Then we're done and we can all go.
I mean, it's not something I've spent a lot of time digging into, but I definitely get the sense that the Flyers want to bring him back, and I think Konecny wants to come back. He loves, he's best buds with Travis Sanheim. He's a key part of the team. He loves the group. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past the Flyers signing him on July 1. Certainly not.
All right. And that is just about all the time we have for you on PHLY Flyers, presented by Mortgage CS today. Make sure you check out mortgagecs.com/PHLY to get your home buying process started. Company and MLS ID number 1464766. Before we get out of here, I do want to say congratulations to Wayne Simmonds on his retirement and his impending one-game contract with the team to retire a Flyer. One of my all-time favorites, maybe number one or number two, honestly. Well-deserved. The dude was a fucking Flyer. All right, that'll do it for us. My name is Bill Matz for Charlie O'Connor. Have a great week, Philly.
We all silly like the mayor.